I was comparing pasta sauce prices when her nails dug into my wrist. The sensation was immediate and shocking. 10 points of pressure that turned my skin white beneath her fingertips. Your son just got hit by a car, and you're shopping. The words came out as a shriek that made every head in the aisle turn toward us. Her breath was hot against my face, reeking of coffee and desperation, and her eyes were wild with something between rage and terror. "What? I think you have the wrong person," I managed to say, trying to pull my arm back. But her grip only tightened, her nails now breaking skin. I could feel the warm trickle of blood starting to form where her index finger pressed deepest. "Don't you dare!" she screamed louder, her voice cracking. "Don't you dare pretend you don't know. Your son is dying out there, and you're in here comparing prices like nothing happened." My shopping basket fell from my other hand, cans rolling across the linoleum floor. An elderly man bent to help gather them, but froze when he saw the woman's face, the fury and certainty blazing there. "I don't have a son," I gasped, my voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. "I don't have any children. You've made a mistake." But she wasn't listening. She was already dragging me, her fingers locked around my wrist like a handcuff, pulling me through the store with shocking strength. I stumbled, my sneakers squeaking against the floor, nearly falling twice as she hauled me past the checkout lanes. The cashier stared. A young mother pulled her toddler closer. I saw phones coming out, cameras pointed at us. "Please," I begged, trying to dig my heels in, but she was propelled by something beyond reason. "Please, you have to listen to me. I'm not who you think I am. I saw you." Her voice broke into a sob, even as she kept moving, kept dragging me toward the automatic doors. "I saw you this morning. I watched you drop him off at school. You were wearing that same blue jacket. You kissed his forehead and told him to have a good day." I remember because I thought what a sweet moment it was. How lucky that little boy was to have a mother who loved him like that. The doors whooshed open, and the afternoon sunlight hit my face, along with a wave of sound that made my stomach drop. Sirens. Multiple sirens. Their wails overlapping in a discordant symphony of emergency. And lights, red and blue, flashing across the parking lot like a deadly disco. Across the street, in front of the elementary school, was a scene from a nightmare. An ambulance, 2 police cars, a small crowd of people, and in the center of it all, paramedics crouched around something small on the ground. Something that couldn't be more than 3 or 4 feet long. "No," I whispered, but the woman was pulling me off the curb into the street. A car honked, swerving around us. "No, please, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." Tears were streaming down her face now, cutting tracks through her makeup. She looked to be in her 50s, with short gray hair and a floral blouse that had coffee stains on the collar. A name tag hung crooked on her chest. "Martha, crossing guard. I understand that you dropped your son off at school and went shopping, and while you were deciding between name brand and generic, he chased his ball into the street and got hit by a car. We reached the other side of the street, and a police officer immediately stepped into our path, his hand raised. He was young, maybe 30, with a military haircut and eyes that had already seen too much. "Ma'am, you need to stay back. This is an active scene. This is his mother," Martha shrieked, finally releasing my wrist to point at me with a shaking finger. She was shopping. Her son is dying, and she was shopping. The officer's gaze shifted to me, and I saw it happen in real time. The assessment, the judgment forming. Behind him, the paramedics were lifting a small figure onto a stretcher, and even from 15 feet away, I could see the blood. So much blood, soaking through a blue t-shirt with what looked like a dinosaur on it. "Ma'am, is this your son?" His voice was carefully neutral, but his hand had moved closer to his belt, to his radio. I've never seen that child before in my life. The words came out steadier than I felt. My wrist was throbbing where Martha had grabbed me, and I could feel the eyes of the growing crowd burning into my back. "She's lying." Martha lunged toward me again, but the officer caught her arm. "I saw her. I see her every morning. She drops him off at 8:15, always running a little late, always giving him that same kiss on the forehead before he runs to join his class." "Ma'am, I need you to calm down," the officer said to Martha, but his eyes never left my face. "Can I see some identification, please?" My hand was shaking so badly, I could barely unzip my purse. Behind the officer, I could see the paramedics working on the child, their movements urgent and precise. One of them was holding an oxygen mask over the small face. Another was checking vitals, calling out numbers that meant nothing to me, but clearly meant something terrible to them. I finally got my wallet out and handed over my driver's license. The officer studied it, his expression unreadable. "Sarah Mitchell, 26 years old, address on Maple Street." He looked up at me. "Do you have any children, Ms. Mitchell?" "No, no children. I'm not married. I live alone." The words tumbled out too fast, and I knew how guilty that made me sound. Guilty people always talk too much, explain too much. "She's lying." Martha was crying openly now, her whole body shaking. I've been a crossing guard at Riverside Elementary for 12 years. I know every child, every parent. That's Ethan. That's her son, Ethan. I watched him grow up from kindergarten. My name is Sarah Mitchell, I said, forcing myself to speak slowly, clearly. I'm 26 years old, and I don't have children. I've never been pregnant. I don't know who that child is. Are you certain about that? The officer asked, and something in his tone made my blood run cold. The absurdity of the question almost made me laugh. How could I not be certain about whether I had given birth? But the laugh died in my throat when I saw his face. He wasn't joking. He was serious, and that somehow made everything worse. Yes, I whispered. I'm certain. Would you be willing to come over and look at him? The officer's voice had softened slightly. Just to be absolutely sure, I wanted to say no. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to run, to get away from this nightmare before it swallowed me whole. But I could feel the crowd pressing closer, could hear their whispers. She doesn't want to look. What kind of mother doesn't want to look? Maybe she did something to him. Maybe that's why she's acting like she doesn't know him. Okay, I heard myself say, okay, I'll look. The officer led me around the police car, Martha following close behind, still crying, still insisting she knew what she'd seen. The paramedics had the boy stabilized on the stretcher now, preparing to load him into the ambulance. One of them, a woman with kind eyes and blood on her gloves, looked up as we approached. This woman says she might be the mother, the officer explained. The paramedic nodded and stepped aside, giving me a clear view of the stretcher. The boy was small, so small, with dark hair matted with blood and a face that was more bruised than skin. His eyes were closed, his chest rising and falling in shallow, rapid movements. Someone had put a blanket over him, but I could see the blood seeping through, spreading like spilled wine. I stared at him, searching desperately for any spark of recognition, any feeling that would make sense of this, any maternal instinct that would suddenly kick in and explain why this stranger was so certain I was his mother. Nothing. I felt horror, yes, pity, a terrible, aching sadness for this child and whatever had happened to him, but no recognition, no connection. He was a stranger, a small, broken stranger, and I had never seen him before in my life. I don't know him, I said quietly. I'm so sorry, but I don't know him. You're lying. Martha's voice was hoarse now from screaming. You're lying, and he's going to die because you won't admit the truth. Ma'am, we need a transport now, the paramedics said urgently. He's critical. We can sort out the family situation at the hospital, but we need to move. Wait, another voice called out. A woman was pushing through the crowd, her phone held high. I have video. I recorded the accident. The officer immediately moved toward her, and I watched as she played the footage on her phone. Even from where I stood, I could see it. A small figure in a blue shirt chasing a red ball into the street. A car trying to brake, unable to stop in time. The sickening impact. And then, in the background, a figure in a blue jacket turning and running toward the scene. That's her. Martha pointed at me and my blue jacket. That's her running toward him. But the officer was rewinding the video, playing it again, his face intent. Ma'am, he said to the woman with the phone, can you zoom in on this part? Right here, before the accident. She did. And suddenly the screen filled with an image of a woman in a blue jacket, her back to the camera, standing on the corner near the school. She was talking on her phone, gesturing with her free hand. As the accident happened, she spun around, and for just a moment, her face was visible. It wasn't me. The woman in the video was older, maybe 40, with longer hair and around her face. She was wearing the same color jacket, but that was the only similarity. That's not Ms. Mitchell, the officer said quiet. Martha stared at the phone screen, her mouth opening and closing soundlessly. But I saw. You saw someone in a blue jacket, the officer said gently. It's an honest mistake, ma'am, but this isn't the boy's mother. The paramedics were already loading the stretcher into the ambulance. Does anyone know who this child belongs to? The kind-eyed paramedic called out. Anyone? We need to notify family. His name is Ethan Parker. A man's voice came from the crowd. A teacher from the school, his face pale and stricken. His mother is Jennifer Parker. Someone's trying to reach her now. She works at the hospital downtown. The ambulance doors slammed shut and the siren started up again, piercing and urgent. I watched it pull away, carrying that small, broken child toward whatever future awaited him, and felt my knees go weak. I am sorry, Martha whispered. She had collapsed onto the curb, her head in her hands. I was so sure. I see so many children every day, so many parents, and I was so sure it was you. The jacket, the time, I was so sure. I should have been angry. She had assaulted me, dragged me through a store, accused me of abandoning my dying child in front of dozens of witnesses. My wrist was still bleeding where her nails had broken skin. But looking at her crumpled form, at the genuine anguish on her face, I couldn't find the anger. It's okay, I said, and was surprised to find I meant it. You were trying to help. Can I get you some medical attention for that wrist? The officer asked, his voice professional again now that the crisis had passed. And we'll need to take a statement. I spent the next hour at the police station, giving my statement, having my wrist cleaned and bandaged by an EMT, answering the same questions over and over. Yes, I was alone. No, I didn't know the Parker family. No, I'd never been to Riverside Elementary. No, I didn't want to press charges against Martha. By the time they let me go, it was nearly dark. I walked back to the grocery store, though I knew my car would probably be the only one left in the lot. My abandoned shopping basket would have been returned to the store, my items restocked. I would have to start over. But when I reached my car, I found I couldn't make myself go back inside. I just sat in the driver's seat, staring at the store entrance, replaying the afternoon in my mind. The fear in Martha's eyes, the blood on that small blue shirt, the way the crowd had looked at me, ready to believe I was a monster. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Rachel. OMG, are you okay? Someone posted a video of you at the grocery store. Said you were denying your kid was in an accident, so it was already online. Of course it was. Everything was always online now, stripped of context, ready to be judged by strangers who knew nothing about the truth. I typed back, long story, not my kid. Case of mistaken identity. I'm Euphine, but I wasn't fine. I sat in that parking lot for another 20 minutes, watching people go in and out of the store with their carts full of ordinary things for their ordinary lives, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Some illusion of safety had been stripped away. How fragile it all was. How quickly you could go from comparing pasta sauce prices to being accused of abandoning a dying child. How easily a stranger could look at you and see someone else entirely. Could be so certain of something that was completely untrue. And that little boy, Ethan Parker, was he in surgery now? Will he survive? Would his real mother make it to the hospital in time? I found myself praying for him, for a child I didn't know, had never seen before today, would probably never see again. My phone buzzed again. Rachel, do you want me to come over? I thought about it. Thought about sitting in my apartment, alone, trying to process what had happened. Thought about the video that was probably spreading across social media right now, about the comments people were probably leaving, the judgments they were making. Yes, I typed back. Please. I finally started my car and pulled out of the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I could see the elementary school across the street. Its playground empty now. The spot where Ethan Parker had been hit marked only by some police tape and a few flowers that someone had already left. Tomorrow, the crossing guard would be back at her post. The children would return to school. Life would go on the way it always did, rolling forward regardless of the small tragedies that marked its passage. But I knew I would never be able to walk past that spot without thinking of today, without remembering the weight of accusation in a stranger's eyes, the sight of a small body on a stretcher, the terrible randomness of it all. When I got home, Rachel was already waiting outside my building, a bottle of wine in one hand and a bag of takeout in the other. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. Tell me everything, she said. So I did. We sat on my couch, and I told her the whole story, from the first bite of Martha's nails into my wrist to the video that proved my innocence. Rachel listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from disbelief to horror to anger and finally to something like understanding. That poor woman, she said when I finished. I mean, yes, she assaulted you, and that's not okay. But can you imagine seeing a child get hit by a car and thinking you know who the mother is? The panic, the desperation to get help. I know, I said. That's why I didn't press charges. She made a mistake, but it came from a good place. She was trying to help. And the boy, Ethan, I don't know. I've been checking the news, but there's nothing yet. I pulled out my phone and searched again, but the only stories were about the accident itself, nothing about his condition. Rachel poured us both wine, and we sat in silence for a while, the television playing some mindless show neither of us was really watching. Finally, she said, you know what the scariest part of this is? What? How easily it could have gone wrong. If there hadn't been video. If that teacher hadn't known the boy's name. If you had been wearing exactly the same jacket as the real mother. You could have been arrested, Sarah. You could have been charged with child endangerment or abandonment or who knows what. I hadn't let myself think about that yet, but she was right. The system was supposed to presume innocence, but I had seen the look in that officer's eyes. The doubt. The willingness to believe I might be lying. If the evidence had been just a little bit different, if the circumstances had aligned just a little bit differently, my life could have been destroyed. I need to get off social media, I said suddenly. I can't deal with people's comments right now. But of course, I couldn't help myself. As soon as Rachel left, I was on my phone, searching for my name, for the video, for any mention of what had happened. And there it was, spreading across Twitter and Facebook and TikTok like wildfire. Most of the comments were sympathetic once people understood what had really happened. Poor woman, that must have been terrifying. Honest mistake by the crossing guard. Hope the kid is okay. But there were others. Why was she so defensive if she was innocent? Something about her story doesn't add up. I bet she does have a kid and just didn't want to deal with the hospital bills. I wanted to respond to every one of of them, to explain, to defend myself. But Rachel's words echoed in my mind. Don't engage. It'll only make it worse. So I put my phone down and went to bed, though I knew I wouldn't sleep. And I was right. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Ethan Parker and his mother Jennifer and Martha, the crossing guard, and all the ways life could change in an instant. The next morning, I woke to a news alert on my phone. 7-year-old boy struck by car in critical but stable condition. Mother thanks community for support. Critical but stable. It wasn't great, but it was better than dead. I felt a wave of relief, so strong it made me dizzy. I got ready for work slowly, choosing a different jacket, a red one this time. No more blue for a while. While I walked to my car, I found myself looking at every person I passed, wondering if they had seen the video, if they recognized me. At work, my coworkers were kind but curious. They had seen the video, of course. Everyone had seen the video. I told the story so many times that day that it started to feel rehearsed, like a script I was performing rather than something that had actually happened to me. But with each telling, something strange happened. The fear and confusion I had felt in the moment started to fade, replaced by something else. Not quite pride, but a kind of quiet strength. I had been accused of something terrible, had been judged by strangers, had been dragged through a nightmare scenario, and I had survived it. I had told the truth, and the truth had won out. That evening, I did something I hadn't planned to do. I drove to Riverside Elementary. School was out, the playground empty, but Martha was there, standing at her crossing guard post, even though there were no children to guard. She saw me coming, and her face crumpled. "I'm so sorry," she said before I could speak. "I'm so sorry. I've been standing here all day thinking about what I did to you, how I could have been so wrong." "It's okay," I said and meant it. "You were trying to help a child. That's not something to apologize for. But I hurt you." She gestured to my wrist, which was still bandaged. "I assaulted you. I could have ruined your life, but you didn't. And Ethan is going to be okay. That's what matters." We stood there for a moment, two women connected by a tragedy that had nothing to do with either of us, and everything to do with the randomness of the universe and the way people try to make sense of chaos. His mother came by earlier. Martha said quietly, "Jennifer, she wanted to thank me for trying to help, even though I got it wrong. She said she was grateful someone cared enough to try. That was kind of her. She looks nothing like you, you know. I don't know how I made that mistake. Different hair, different face, different everything. Just the jacket." She shook her head. "I've been doing this job for 12 years. I thought I knew every parent, every child, but I guess I don't know anything." "You know enough to care," I said. "That's more than a lot of people." I left her there and drove home, feeling lighter somehow. The video was still circulating online, would probably circulate for days or weeks until some new drama replaced it. People would probably still recognize me, still whisper and point. But I found I didn't care as much as I thought I would, because in the end, I knew the truth. I knew who I was and who I wasn't. I knew I had done nothing wrong. And I knew that sometimes life throws you into situations so absurd, so impossible, that all you can do is hold on to the truth and wait for the storm to pass. 3 weeks later, I was back at the same grocery store, comparing the same pasta sauce prices, when I felt someone tap my shoulder. I spun around, my heart racing, half expecting another nightmare. But it was just a young woman, maybe 30, with a kind smile and a small boy holding her hand. The boy had a scar on his forehead and a cast on his arm, but his eyes were bright and curious. "You're Sarah, aren't you?" the woman asked. "I am Jennifer Parker. This is Ethan." I looked down at the boy I had seen broken and bleeding on a stretcher and felt tears spring to my eyes. "Hi, Ethan," I managed to say. "Hi," he said shyly. "Mom says you helped me. I didn't really. I was there." "You were there when it mattered," Jennifer said, "and I wanted to thank you. Martha told me what happened, how you didn't press charges, how kind you were even after everything. That means a lot." "How was he doing?" I asked, unable to take my eyes off Ethan's face. He looked so normal, so healthy, like the accident had been a bad dream. Better every day. Broken arm, concussion, some internal bruising. But he's tough. He's going to be fine. Ethan tugged on his mother's hand. "Can we get ice cream?" Jennifer laughed. "We're here for groceries, buddy, but maybe after." She looked back at me. "Thank you, Sarah, for everything. For being kind when you had every right to be angry. For understanding that mistakes happen. For being human." I watched them walk away, Ethan chattering about something while his mother listened with the patient attention only a parent can manage, and I felt something settle in my chest. Some last piece of the nightmare finally clicking into place. It was over. The video would fade. The whispers would stop. Life would go on the way it always did, and I would remember this All of it. The fear and the confusion and the anger and the grace. I would remember Martha's desperate certainty and Jennifer's gratitude and Ethan's bright, curious eyes. I would remember that sometimes the universe throws you into someone else's tragedy, and all you can do is try to be kind. I finished my shopping and drove home, and for the first time in 3 weeks, I didn't think about that day. I thought about dinner and a book I wanted to read and a call I needed to make to Rachel. I thought about ordinary things, beautiful in their ordinariness. And when I passed Riverside Elementary, I saw Martha at her post, her orange vest bright in the afternoon sun, her hand raised to stop traffic while a stream of children crossed the street safely to their waiting parents. Life goes on. Tragedies happen and people survive them. Mistakes are made and forgiveness is given. And sometimes a stranger grabs your wrist in a grocery store and accuses you of being someone you're not, and you survive that too. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe for more real-life tales that will make you question everything you thought you knew about truth, identity, and the strange ways our lives intersect with strangers.